Hello, listeners. I'm Josh, and welcome to Dialectical Violence's UFC 315 review show. I'm going to be giving a quick recap of the action of the main event fight, as well as what those results mean for both the fighters and for the future of their division. The opening fight on the main card was a lightweight bout with Benoit Saint-Denis taking on returning UFC washout and local fighter Kyle Prepollet. This was a make-or-break win for Saint-Denis, who'd been pushed by the UFC right to the top after dramatic finish victories over Gabriel Miranda, Ismael Bonfim, Thiago Moises, and Matt Frivola. He then thought probably the greatest fighter in lightweight history to ever come short of winning an undisputed title, Dustin Poirier, while suffering from a staph infection. After dominating the first round, Saint-Denis fatigued badly in round 2 against Poirier, and was KO'd by the Octagon veteran. His next bout in front of a home crowd in Paris, France, Saint-Denis was taken down early by a surging Renato Moicano, who did enough damage to his face that the bout seemed likely to be stopped. As it turned out, possibly concerned about enraging the French crowd, the fight was let to go to the second round, which BSD won, before the fight was stopped by the doctor at the end of round 2, giving Moicano the TKO victory. Saint-Denis was initially slated to fight 6'3" Spanish lightweight Joel Alvarez, but an injury forced Alvarez to withdraw from the bout and Prepollet stepped up to fill the role. There were nevertheless some concerning signs for BSD. Supposedly, he did most of his fight camp without a coach, although by the time he made the walk in Montreal, he had Nicolas Ott as the head coach in his corner. Another notable student of Ott was number 1 middleweight contender Nasruddin Imavov. Saint-Denis was nevertheless a huge favourite, closing in at minus 1350 with Vegas lines. An early finish was expected against this much lower level of competition. Saint-Denis wouldn't find the finish in the first round, but dominated with his grappling. Things started looking a little hairy for Saint-Denis early in round 2, when Prepollet started catching BSD with left hook counters to low kicks. There was surprising parity in range striking, but Saint-Denis took over in the clinch, dragged Prepollet to the mat, and got the arm triangle choke for a round 2 submission win. Benoit Saint-Denis didn't look his best in this fight, but I put that up to a couple of factors. First of all, the loss of confidence is bound to come with being on the wrong end of 2 stoppage losses. Secondly, the awareness that a loss to this level of competition would be humiliating and likely career-ending. And finally, that the two fighters were both southpaws, which limited Saint-Denis' use of the rear body and head kicks he used to great effect against other fighters. Saint-Denis' boxing defense while advancing is by far the worst part of his game, and at the higher level, pure aggression won't be enough. He's definitely still a work in progress, but it is good to see him get back in the win column. With a rebook against Alvarez likely his next bout, hopefully his confidence is back. Also, having a head coach and keeping them will help. The next bout was a women's flyweight tilt between former champion Alexa Grasso and surging contender Natalia Silva. It was a dominant victory on the scorecards for Silva, who won every round against Grasso. Silva's strike style seems to be an amalgamation of boxing, Muay Thai, and Taekwondo, and it's absolutely beautiful to behold. Lots of lateral movement, lots of dexterous kicks, really well-timed punches, good control of space, and of setting traps for the opponent. In the first round, Silva took advantage of the boxing-centric stance of Grasso, who's heavy on the lead leg, whipping kicks into it. Grasso also had some limited success with a jab, but Silva was composed enough to counter the second jab on the double jab combination with the lead hook. About halfway through round 1, Silva slipped and Grasso pounced at her to try to take advantage, but Silva worked her way up on the fence, broke Grasso off by shifting to the side and hitting her with a punch to force her to break contact. There was a really nice sequence in the latter part of the round where Silva feinted a jab to move Grasso into the path of a side kick to the face. Weirdly, the commentary team, with the sole exception of Dominic Cruz, spent most of this fight, and especially the early parts of it, glazing Grasso and her ring-cutting abilities as Silva was walking her into counter shots. The second round was mostly Grasso waiting for an opportunity instead of forcing one while Silva pieced her up. Silva showed a very dexterous lead leg, most likely benefits of her Taekwondo training, throwing high kicks off of it with no telegraph. Silva also had a nice moment at the end of the round where she hit a right high kick and landed a right cross as her foot came back to the canvas. At the very end of the round, Grasso did try to flurry while Silva had backed herself to the cage, but Silva's faster reactions and better accuracy meant the Brazilian got the better of the exchanges. Regardless, that was definitely the area that Grasso needed to fight to win it. So in round 3, she tried to get pressure going early, but was stymied by a push kick from Silva, and then it was really more of the same. Grasso had some success with lead kicks, but it was a pretty bad look that she only began to throw them in round 3. Alexa was game in the third round, but it was too little too late. She was too far behind. She didn't even manage to pull out that round, so it was a 3-0 win for Silva. In my view, Natalia Silva is a breath of fresh air in the women's flyweight division. Whilst women's MMA lately has gotten a lot of flack, rightfully, for a lack of excitement and a scarcity of compelling challenges, I think the UFC is something special here if they manage Silver right. She's a dynamic striking style, she's a very impressive athlete in terms of speed and agility, has a bubbly personality, and would look good on a poster. A very marketable young fighter, and a really tough challenge for anyone going against her in her division. I would actually favour Silva to beat Shevchenko at this point, although I think there are smarter business moves available for the UFC, which I'll go over a little later in the video after recapping Shevchenko versus Fior. In terms of potential weaknesses for Silva, we do need to see if this movement heavy style can last 5 rounds, and we haven't really got enough information about how she responds when stuck in bottom position against a competent grappler. I imagine if they were to fight, Shevchenko's path to victory would rely on getting her to the ground ASAP. With regards to Grasso, despite losing again and likely being out of the title picture for the foreseeable future, I actually liked what I saw here. I know that probably sounds crazy, but to be fair, Silva would have always been a horrible matchup for Grasso in my opinion, and what I found encouraging was the gameness that she showed, which was night and day compared to her anemic, defeatist performance against Shevchenko in their trilogy bout. I find Grasso likable, I root for her a lot, but I've never really felt like she was at the consistent championship level. But in this fight, she looked like herself, flaws and all, but at least her mindset seems to be getting on track, so that's still some progress. 3 fights into the main card, we finally got to what looked like it would be the oasis in the desert of sports entertainment, and we were right. Jose Aldo put on an impressive performance in his retirement effort against Ayman Zahabi, despite falling short on the judges' scorecard. The first round saw a very quiet first minute with no real activity and a lot of jockeying for position in the cage, until Aldo landed a high kick followed up shortly by a knee. Aldo looked fast and dangerous, to a degree impressive for such a tenured fighter. Zahabi, to his credit, was defending about 2 in every 3 strikes, but had given away the initiative, likely intentionally, to Aldo. Aldo nailed Zahabi with a great right hook and then left hook to the body. In my view, Aldo is the greatest body puncher in the history of the sport, and the biomechanics on those punches were absolutely gorgeous. And these punches hurt Zahabi. Despite putting on a poker face, this was clear by his left arm lowering to cover the spot where he got hit. Zahabi did try to put on some pressure on Aldo late, especially after Jose Aldo's explosive movements, walking him down while switching between a conventional guard and cross-arm blocks while not really throwing much, but getting Aldo twitching. Aldo showed some good head movement against the fence when Zahabi started to actually throw, and hit Zahabi with some nice slip and rip punches and a vintage low kick. Zahabi's chin was holding up very well to Aldo's power, and late in the first round, Zahabi started forcing Aldo into pocket exchanges. Whilst Aldo's superior reaction speed meant he was getting the better of punching in the pocket, Zahabi was clearly working his game plan, forcing Aldo into involuntary energy expenditure. The second round was pretty close, but a lot more pedestrian than the first and the third. Zahabi started off well, hitting Aldo with a knee to the body and getting some jabs off. Aldo connected with a big body kick, but there was little else of note until, with 2 minutes left in the round, Aldo was hit in the cup. Referee Dan Mergliotta resumed the action, giving Aldo little time to recover or catch his breath. A minute later, Zahabi kicked Aldo in the cup again. Once again, Mergliotta gave less than 20 seconds of time for Aldo before resuming the bout. Zahabi landed a nice leg kick of note, and there was a lot of near misses for both men in this round. But I did have Zahabi edging it with more aggression. But there is also a case for Aldo. I know that a lot of people did score the second for Aldo as well. Round 3 was incredible. Zahabi looked to pour it on early, landing some nice jabs in a 1-1-2 combo that got Aldo's attention. But a big right hand by Aldo staggered Zahabi and a follow-up knee dropped him. As Zahabi tried to get up, Aldo slammed his chin into Zahabi's face, who somehow remains conscious but badly rocked. And as Zahabi makes it back to his feet while reeling, Aldo nails him with another right hand and a follow-up soccer kick off of Zahabi getting dropped again. Almost immediately, Aldo gasses, having expended all of his energy chasing the finish, and Zahabi hits him with some nice knees in a tie clinch. Aldo then attempted a desperation takedown, which is easily defended, and the featherweight great flopped to his back, exhausted. Zahabi mounted him, and following the advice of his cornerman and welterweight goat George St. Pierre, started raining elbows down on Aldo, opening a big cut on his forehead. Aldo managed to survive until the end of the round. It was a close fight, and good for Zahabi for coming back from adversity. He wasn't a really bad spot to get the biggest win of his career, but I disagree with the scoring from the judges here. I was surprised that all 3 judges scored the fight 29-28 for Zahabi, and whilst I understand that Zahabi was close to getting the finish at the end of round 3, he was dropped not once but twice in the very same round. It's a little bit of a shame for Aldo that he went out on a loss, but he has retired before, so who knows if he'll be back. I tend to think this time it will stick though, or he focuses on boxing perhaps, but either way, this was a great performance by the King of Rio. I will give credit to Ayman Zahabi for implementing a smart game plan formulated by his brother Faraz, the head coach of TriStar Gym. Aldo was a freakishly explosive athlete, which is why even as a featherweight, he tends to have cardio issues. But, like I said, he is fast, he is powerful, has great reactions, and is very experienced and technical as a striker. Zahabi's only advantage was his cardio, and he smartly baited Aldo into expending a lot of energy. As close as he came to losing, he did manage to pull it out. At a fairly old age for the bantamweight division itself, I don't know how much further Zahabi could go, but he wants to fight Cheeto Vera next, and that's definitely winnable, given that Cheeto only ever gets a win when he can get a kill shot off, and otherwise gets way behind in the cards due to a lack of fight IQ and technical depth. So now we get to the first of the two title fights on the UFC 315 card, where Valentina Shevchenko defended her newly regained flyweight title against French kickboxer Manon Fiorot. Fiorot had stamped her ticket to a title fight by turning away another hot prospect, Erin Blanchfield, stuffing her attempt to take the fight to the mat and piecing her up over the course of 5 rounds. With both fighters coming out southpaw in round 1, Shevchenko began the fight uncharacteristically aggressively with an early jab and countered Fiorot hard with a lead right hook as the Frenchwoman threw a low kick. Valentina busted Manon's nose with right hooks and stumbled her midway through the second midway through the round. Late in the round, Valentina tried to pass side control, likely attempting to re-establish a crucifix position like she had with other opponents, but was unable to before the horn rings. A good round for the champion. In the second, Fiorot attempted to leverage her physical horsepower into a takedown, pushing Shevchenko against the cage, but the champion escaped. A Fiorot high kick slammed into Valentina's arm, and Manon attempted again to grapple, although squandered an opportunity to take the champion down with a knee tap. Shevchenko hit a trip and managed to end up on top, although not for long, with Fiorot elevating her over the hips and tossing Valentina off of her. Shevchenko attempted to wrestle Fiorot, but that attempt was defended simply through the raw athleticism. Manon Fiorot is called the Beast, and you can see why. Fiorot, whatever it is, slammed a knee into Shevchenko's body before shoving her away. Manon attempted a double leg and pushed Valentina to the fence before shifting to a back body lock, scoring with knees to Shevchenko's hamstrings. Fiorot managed to take Shevchenko down and threw an illegal knee to Valentina's face, which the champion blocked in the last second. So it was a good comeback round for Fiorot. Had a bit of a scary moment at the end there because that could have been one of those bad, she gets knocked out by that knee and it's a no contest kind of situation. Fiorot landed early in round 3 with a step-in knee and a clinch. Shevchenko got a reaction out of Manon with an inside low kick. The French challenger just missed on a head kick that Valentina was ducking towards. Then she got off an elbow in the clinch and more knees to the body of the champion. Shevchenko got one back with a knee to Manon's face and landed a nice spinning back fist. Fiorot once again got the back body lock and chipped away at the leg of Shevchenko. A pretty close and pretty boring round, to be honest, but I gave it to Fiorot. In round 4, the challenger managed to drive Shevchenko to the fence, kneeing her legs again. Shevchenko managed to land a knee to the challenger's body and hit Manon's rib with a spinning back kick. The two women exchanged knees in the body, and Valentina got a slick takedown, but Fiorot worked her way up, driving knees in Valentina's body while doing so. Another close round, but Fiorot was leading it until with 7 seconds left on the clock in that round, Shevchenko managed to drop Fiorot with a right hook while the tiring Frenchwoman was throwing a sloppy side kick. In the 5th and final round, Fiorot was looking the more tired of the two fighters, which made sense given that her reliance was on physical horsepower and setting a pace in order to dominate the fight. DC noted in the commentary that there's some more development needed in Fiorot's body lock game, which I don't disagree with, but it had kept her in this fight, to be fair. As boring as it was, the body lock and knees to the back of the thigh was point scoring offense. Shevchenko managed to counter Fiorot in the pocket a little bit in this round. Fiorot did land a side kick and Valentina landed a spinning back fist, both sort of their signature moves, really. Fiorot dug in a body knee while clinching with Shevchenko against the fence, and the champion managed to fire back with a right hook and a body kick. Valentina goes a bit old school with a Superman punch, although I couldn't really tell because of the angle if it landed or not. Fiorot landed a right-handed knee to the body, and Fiorot once again got punished for throwing a sloppy side kick with a right hook. So that was clearly a read that Valentina must have made before the fight. I'm trying to counter the side kick with right hooks because she obviously dropped it with it the round before, and then she's consistently throwing it whenever Fiorot would throw these side kicks. Fiorot kneed Valentina to the body again and hit it with an elbow. Another close round, but I leaned towards Shevchenko on that one. So Shevchenko ended up winning 48-47 on all 3 judges' scorecards, although there was dissent on which rounds he won. Tal D'Amato and Chris Lee scored rounds 1, 4, and 5 Shevchenko, which is what I scored it as well. Guy Gerard scored the first, third, and fourth rounds for Shevchenko, whilst giving Fierro rounds 2 and 5, which is fair enough to me. I mean, I do agree with Fierro winning round 2. 5 was a close round. It's not outrageous to give it to Fierro. This was a very close fight. And it does seem that the knockdown in round 4, which all 3 judges scored for Shevchenko, basically saved her from getting edged out on the scorecards. The UFC was no doubt happy that one of their few stars left in the women's divisions got a victory, and with Natalia Silva getting an impressive win earlier in the night, she's the obvious next challenger for the title. But I think business-wise, there are better options. If I was the UFC matchmakers, I would have Shevchenko go up to bantamweight to fight the winner of Pena versus Harrison, especially if Pena wins, in which case I think the chances of a Nunes comeback in order to get a Harrison super fight basically disappears. I think Shevchenko's likely to take the belt in that wasteland of a division, particularly if Pena wins it. She's already got a win over Pena in the past, a while ago, admittedly, but, I think she'd beat her. In the meanwhile, I think Silva could fight the winner of Blanchfield versus Barber, which kicks off June, for an interim title. In the meanwhile, strawweight champion Weili Zhang, who there's been talks about her potentially moving up, could face the number 1 contender in that division, Virna Jandiroba, and if she wins, then she's basically cleared out the division completely and can move up down to the strawweight title once things are settled with regards to that interim title idea. In my opinion, that makes the most of the potential star power in those divisions and keeps as many of the popular fighters in play with minimal risk. I will give Shevchenko some flowers on this one for narrowly scraping by against what is a very tough stylistic matchup. I picked Manon to defeat her via decision, and while that came very close to happening, the clutch knockdown in round 4 did win her the fight. She remained focused and composed throughout the bout and managed to use her skills to stay competitive with a more physically imposing contender. As far as Fior, she's still a beast and simply needs more technical improvement. I was surprised at the lack of 1-2s. I think that the 2 following the jab would have helped to nullify Shevchenko's counter right hook and allowed her to bully Shevchenko around a bit more. And she didn't faint at all in this bout, which is pretty bad when your main especially is striking. Couple of small improvements. She could easily challenge for the title again, if not outright win it. She's the most imposing athlete at this weight class in terms of strength, and some improvements in her clinch game could also make her just an oppressive bully at flyweight. Her next fight will probably be against Grasso, I would imagine, which I think she'll soundly beat with not a lot of problems. I've seen a lot of criticism of this fight online for being a bit of a snooze fest, and it kind of was at times, but it did exceed my expectations, which I guess were just really, really low for this fight. Both women were more aggressive than I thought they would be, and it differed a little bit from what I expected, which was a long range sort of that staring and jabbing contest, which I thought Fierro would actually win it out of her sidekick. But yeah, it was another Shevchenko title defense. What else can you say? Finally, we get to the main event for the welterweight strap between Bilal, remember the name Muhammad, and Aussie challenger Jack Della Maddalena. This fight definitely exceeded my expectations, which was that it would be a control-heavy win by Bilal, which would be impressive in terms of a technical achievement, but not exactly a thriller. Boy, was I wrong about that one. So, in the first round, JDM lands a nice right hand almost immediately, with Bilal landing a left body kick. JDM strings together some nice jabs and good boxing combinations, whilst Bilal manages to get off another body kick. Some good jabs from the champion and a 1-1-2 get JDM's attention, showing that, despite Bilal not being the biggest puncher, he is still someone that needs to be respected in the striking. Bilal charged and landed a good right hand while JDM was switching stances. A head kick thrown from southpaw partially landed for the challenger, and a left cross buckles Bilal's knees momentarily. JDM follows up with a double jab and a right hook, but is unable to finish the fight then and there. Bilal drove JDM to the fence, but was unable to get the Aussie down, so releases the lock and hit JDM with a right hand and a stiff left. He follows this up with 2 body kicks. The very end of the round sees them grabbing the back of each other's heads private Takayama style. It was a competitive round, but JDM's more potent punching definitely won it for him. The champion started off the second round with some good jabs and a head kick when JDM dipped, but the Aussie returned fire with a good right cross. JDM tossed out a few front kicks, which landed on Bilal's abdomen, and a huge right cross lands for JDM, but Muhammad takes it well. Della Maddalena works the body with kicks, and both champion and challenger land nice right hands. Bilal did look pretty dangerous late in the round, swarming JDM against the fence, but the challenger's defense was actually pretty good. He managed to mitigate some of the damage that he would otherwise take. There were some nice right hands from Bilal at the end of the round. And overall, it was pretty close, but I scored it for Muhammad, although it could easily go the other way as well. Muhammad opened round 3 with a nice 1-2, and JDM answered back with a beautiful left body hook and right up top that Taporia himself would be proud of. JDM pings Bilal with a nice left hook counter, and the Palestinian-American champion fires back with a double jab and a right hand. At this point, Bilal is noticeably headhunting, while JDM is mixing up his strikes to the head with body work. Bilal lands with a nice right, and JDM chips away with body kicks. Bilal cracks JDM with a good right hand after slipping a jab from the Aussie. The commentary team, especially DC and Cruz, are obsessed with Bilal's failure to doggedly pursue takedowns, but to be fair, JDM has stuffed Bilal's attempts so far, and Muhammad is competitive, if a little lacking in firepower, in the striking with JDM. The Australian challenger lands a nice right hand, and the champion responded with a nice left. JDM started putting together some nice counters to Bilal's rushes, and Bilal hits a nice left body kick and an elbow before dropping down for a takedown, but doesn't get it. Another close round. I again lean towards Bilal on this one. Trying to break his opponent in the championship rounds, Bilal swarms JDM to open round 4 and lands a nice body kick as JDM circles away on the fence. Bilal lands some nice hooks as well as a 1-2 followed by a double jab, and Della Maddalena, making some adjustments, starts to focus on throwing crosses before the jab and lands a nice 2-1 from southpaw. JDM throws more body hooks and the two men exchange jabs. Bilal lands another 1-2 and takes a check right hook from JDM. Intelligently, JDM retreats, pulling Bilal forward into the path of a big right hook. The Australian lands a body kick. Bilal rushes him behind a good uppercut, squaring up while pursuing JDM to the cage and tries to get a takedown. Failing this, Bilal then swings in the pocket with JDM, with both fighters landing little, to be honest. Bilal pushes JDM to the fence again, with the Australian seemingly considering going for a ninja choke, but Bilal stiffs and takes it back. The Aussie reverses him and chips away at Bilal's body. Muhammad grabs JDM's head and lands some nice uppercuts. JDM lands a nice head kick, and Bilal gets the back body lock again, attempting to throw kicks at JDM's head while maintaining the hold. Big hooks are exchanged at the end of the round. Another fairly close one, but in my opinion, JDM's firepower edged it for this one. With the final round beginning, the scorecards are anyone's guess, with only round 1 being really clear in my opinion. JDM lands a nice left hook early, and Bilal returns with a body kick that he had been neglecting for long portions of the bout, but then had seemingly remembered again. The challenger doubled up on a left hook, and Bilal gets off his own, and the Australian splits Bilal's head open with a knee. Not to be deterred, Bilal cracks JDM with a big right hand. Bilal finally gets a takedown, who seizes top, which allows him to seize top position. He gets off a little bit of ground and pound before JDM gets back up. Jack Della Maddalena lands a nice elbow and a big right hook, and then left cross from southpaw visibly wobbled the champion. JDM laid into Bilal with bodywork, and Bilal manages to get JDM to the mat again with a slick takedown, which appears to be an adapted Tawadageishi or rice bag throw whilst in the clinch. Muhammad is unable to hold Jack Della Maddalena down. Another punch combination near the end of the round almost puts Bilal's lights out, with him appearing out on his feet for a moment, but JDM lets him off the hook. The bell sounds, and JDM clearly wins round 5. Two of the judges, Michael Bell and David Terrien, scored the contest 48-47 to JDM, giving him rounds 2, 3, and 5. Eric Colon scored the fight 49-46 to JDM, giving Muhammad only round 4. Although the right man won, the judging of the round seems a little wonky to me. In my view, Muhammad clearly lost the first and fifth rounds. I gave rounds 2 and 3 to Muhammad and leaned towards JDM for round 4. I suppose you could get a scorecard for Bilal Muhammad, but I think you'd really be having to give him an unfair amount of benefit of the doubt to give him all 3 middle rounds. Valiant effort from him regardless, and it's nice to see the fan base finally coming around to him even though he lost his belt. I got this fight wrong big time with my prediction. I expected Muhammad to win a pretty clear decision. In terms of positives from both men, Della Maddalena had excellent shot selection with his boxing combinations, did good body work, and had really lights out takedown defense for the most part. His stance switches are much subtler than a lot of other fighters, and he shows an impressive ability to throw with power from both hands and in both stances. His cardio also held up, and both his physical durability and mental toughness are impressive. As far as Bilal goes, he did manage to put a lot of pressure on Della Maddalena and was highly competitive with Jack in his own wheelhouse, namely, MMA boxing. The body kicks were nice, but they could have been more frequent, and in a lot of ways, even though I'm sure both men would hate the comparison, late stage Bilal Muhammad looks a lot like prime Colby Covington in his high pressure, low power, pace striking game, with also wrestling thrown in. Also, Bilal's chin is highly underrated. And to his credit, he did also hurt JDM at least once in this fight. To get to the negatives, I did expect a better game plan from a fighter as intelligent as Bilal Muhammad. While he always claims not to care, I think the online hate finally got to him with the "I'll show them" mentality. I'll beat him at his own game, forcing him into trading with JDM in what was largely a boxing match with small gloves. I disagree with DC and Cruz that Bilal's game plan should have been takedown or bust, but more range kickboxing and dirty boxing would not have gone amiss. If Bilal was to commit to a war of attrition, he really should have headhunted less. Who knows, maybe if he had thrown body hooks as well as headshots, he would have broken JDM in the championship round. I can't really hate on Bilal for lacking knockout power in his hands. It's just something you have or you don't. But he really should develop a submission game to get some finishes. I think there's a small aperture for an arm triangle finish in round 5, and it's exactly the kind of thing that a fighter like Islam Makhachev would have jumped on immediately. JDM does get less credit through virtue of less criticism, sorry, through virtue of winning, but he shows some tendencies that should cause some concern for his chances against other top welterweights. He tends to back himself to the fence a lot when under pressure, which is very dangerous against the likes of Rakhmonov or Buckley. He also slips a little too low, which is a habit that he's no doubt picked up from boxing, and whilst he does throw some jabs, they are still far less than I would expect from someone with boxing as their foundational martial art. It seems like the UFC is going to go forward with creating JDM versus Makhachev, which is an intriguing fight. I do think Mogged probably would win that one, but he has shown some questionable durability, and it's not outside of the realm of possibility for JDM to knock him out. But it's a little bittersweet because I would rather see Islam Makhachev fight Ilia Topuria at lightweight. We're probably going to end up with Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira instead, which is a fine fight, but it's not got the same pound for pound implications as Makhachev versus Ilia. And also, I really think the timing is a bit strange because there's a bit of a bottleneck of contenders at welterweight, and I think what's unfortunately likely to happen is at least two of those welterweights are going to be eliminated from at least close term, short term title contention by having to fight the other top contenders. I would rather see Rakhmonov versus JDM personally, but I know that's sort of not the most common take. Overall, UFC 315 definitely wasn't as bad as it could have been, but it was stacked with a lot of fights that were kind of bound to be relative non-events. They did have important title implications for the women's flyweight and men's welterweight divisions, however. In terms of my picks, I actually got more picks wrong than I got right on this card. But I still feel pretty good about my analysis on them. The only one that was a big surprise to me was Bilal versus JDM. Like I said earlier on in the video, I did expect Fierro to outpoint Valentina Shevchenko, and I believe he would have if not for that knockdown in round 3. So I feel like my analysis was reasonably good on that one. Also, I had Aldo to win by third round TKO against Ayman Zahabi, which was very, very, very close to happening. So yeah, but I did get the Natalia Silva one right, and I did get Benoit Saint-Denis beating Carl Kripalets right. Although given he was a minus 1350 favorite, I'm not exactly bragging about that one. And I did expect him to beat him in round 1 instead of round 2, so there is that. If you enjoyed this recap, please like and subscribe. Hopefully I didn't bore you too much. Hopefully you enjoyed it. And you have a good day. Signing off, this is Josh from Dialect of Violence. Have a good one.